Very strange. Here we go. Hey, Wes.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Walkabout mini golf. Oh, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I was just trying to hold for the whole show. Wes said, Brian, you can't talk about Walkabout the entire show because Vargelsoft is saying how long is it going to take for it, and that was as long as I could hold it in. I can't go more than 4.5 seconds without bringing up Walkabout mini golf.
Well, what is this walkabout you speak of, Brian? Is it any good?
My God. It is more than an obsession. It is more than an obsession. It's not even on my list of games to talk about today, but since Vargosoft made me talk about it, dude, I can't wait. Hopefully we'll get, I mean, how could we not really? How could we not get Walkabout on PSVR2? It would be a travesty. Travesty.
Yeah, I would agree. I love. I mean, obviously, it's a great game, and it's about to enter a new era for their DLC with the Labyrinth thing coming out and future themed DLC coming. But the best thing about Walkabout is the cross-platform multiplayer, and yeah, man, a perfect title for any new VR library.
Absolutely. And now that I've gotten that out of my system, let's start the show.
Let's do it.
This is PSVR GamesCast Live. We film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on YouTube, live at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching it right now, you could very well be watching it live, or we could just be screwing with your mind, and you could be watching it later. You know, later when Sci-Fi Gamecat Henry gets those timestamps up on the show, channel, description, words. But don't forget, you don't have to watch it live, or even watch it in video format, because our good buddy Jay Meow has made sure to get this thing up and running on podcast services of your choice. Which ones? I don't know. It's your choice. I don't really care which ones you listen to it on. But dude, Wes, before I even introduce you, because obviously so much more important stuff to do here. I just got to give a shout out to all the cats out there, man, because everybody's doing crazy stuff. We got a serial killer who got the fan wiki page up recently, and then right after that, we had Jay Meow who got our website up recently. Literally, without parole.com is a thing now. I can't believe it. It's a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's a thing?
That is a thing. I've owned the domain, the URL for so long. And I was like, one of these days we're going to get a website up and running. And then Jay Meow finally did it. So shout out to all the cool cats out there doing all the great stuff. Especially our moderators that keep my day-to-day life way easier than rightfully should be. But also thank you to you, Wes, for joining us every single Wes day. If you guys don't know, this is Wes Dillon from Virtual Strangers. How's it going, bud?
It is going great, Brian. It's been busy. I've had a lot going on here the last week or so. I want to shout my wife out because typically we get along pretty well because I keep my VR podcasting activities to 2 days per week, sometimes 3. But it's been every day pretty much for the last week. We're doing recorded videos, which is something that we don't typically always do. But I've done 2 of those since we last spoke. So it's been a very busy time of preparation and execution. But everything has gone extremely well. And for that reason, I'm in a very good mood today.
Nice. Shout out to Wes's wife. That's something we get a lot of shout outs for around here. Oh, dude, you really put me to shame over there. That's all I got to say is that, like, I'm doing this technically full time, right? And once upon a time, I waited tables and did this full time. But man, like, you've got a full time job, you've got a full time family, wife, kids, and also like the amount of content you put out on Virtual Strangers is just mind blowing. It really makes me go, geez, I got to step up my game over here if this is what I call full time. What's going on in the land of Virtual Strangers? Anything we should be looking forward to or getting caught up on?
Yes. Well, I mean, of course, it's West Day, so we've got Strangers in the Night coming later on the night, which we are featuring. What are we featuring this week? We're doing Kayak VR Mirage. I'm sure you're
Nice.
familiar.
Mm-hmm.
We're also doing the Twilight Zone VR,
Ooh.
which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in what we have to say about that. And then we're going to do another title, which is going to launch on Quest tomorrow. That will remain nameless.
Whoa. If you want to know, you got to tune in. Make sure you subscribe to Virtual Strangers. The link for that is in the description below. But getting back to some Without Parole stuff, guys, don't forget, if you want to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/withoutparolegames and hook us up for however much you want every single month. $3 a month gets your name on that little scroll going by constantly, and also gives you access to voice chat over on our Discord. Other than that, Discord's totally free. Feel free to click the link in the description and join us over there. And for $5 a month, you get exclusive video content, which right now means a Why We Love episode roughly once a month. Dude, we gotta record ours. That's important. I keep forgetting.
That's another thing. That's another thing I've been preparing for is playing a game that's not in my rotation for my content. That I've been getting that one in when I can. Right.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to do that one. Here, I got to take down the logo so that people can see Tornado. I know it's just hotly requested. Yeah, and I'm going to do my best to absolutely get content up there for all the Patreon supporters, not just the $5 people, because I want to make sure that you guys know that even if you're just giving $1 a month, that I support. No, that I appreciate the fuck out of you. I think that's what I was looking for.
We love you. Thank you.
Right on. Dude, let's kick things off here. What's going on, bud? Come on. Listen. If you're going to be up here, then at least get on camera. You want to get up here? Listen, while I try to coax Tornado onto camera, I'm going to give a shout out to Donatello, the scientist Gamecat, with the $5 tip. Says, the thought of playing Quest games on my PSVR2 makes me sick. I know they will be better and all that, but I hope Bryan notes Quest game in review. Interesting. You know what? I'm gonna copy and paste this because before we begin our Quest discussion, I do want to. I think there's a lot of things we should probably address before we get there. But speaking of PSVR2, Emily Baxter in Viewer Takeover. If you guys don't know, you can post your Viewer Takeover questions over on our Discord. Just click the link in the description below and go to the Viewer Takeover channel and leave your questions there. Yes, you can always leave questions here in the chat, but we might miss them. So Viewer Takeover channel on Discord is a good place to do that. She writes, #Viewer Takeover. Hypothetical question. If PSVR2 becomes a fiasco to get because of bots and scalpers, and Bryan Paul can't get one at launch, will Bryan pay scalper prices since his channel depends on the latest news? Now, this is a scary prospect, right, Wes? Because yes. You and I think, are in a very similar boat. I don't think you're going to let launch day come and go without getting a PSVR2. Am I right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, I've been waiting too long, and even if I didn't have a channel to provide content for, or multiple channels at this point, I don't think I would be able to hold back at this point. Like, I've been so ready. I was ready to buy this thing like with money in hand 18 months ago. Yeah. I've been sitting here still with money in hand. So as much as I would hate to allow some asshole to profit off of me, I'm not sure that I would be able to control myself.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if there's like some sort of like maximum price where I'm like, well, as long as it's not more than $1,000, I'll pay it. But I'm 100%. If I need to pay $1,000 to have a PlayStation VR2 on launch days, I'll like be able to start covering it then that's what I'll do. But it does lead to kind of a good question, Wes. How chaotic do you think the PlayStation VR2 launch is going to be? Like, obviously, the PlayStation 5 was, to put it in Emily Baxter's terms, kind of a fiasco. Do you think that we're going to see something similar for PSVR2, or is the VR market just not there yet to create that kind of supply and demand problem?
I think that will be an aspect that certainly has some impact, but beyond that, I kind of feel like the PS5 launch was a bit of a learning experience for Sony and everyone. I mean, the shortages affected everyone, not just Sony. Things are only just now starting to normalize in all the tech markets. I mean, graphics cards are only coming into stock. And by the way, the last line of graphics cards launched pretty much in sync with the last line of consoles. So everything's just now starting to come into stock. And I think, uh, I believe, and I know you believe, that Sony has plans for VR in the future, and a lot of what they have planned depends on PSVR2 having a successful launch. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't have it yet. Is I do think that they don't want this to be a reality. Of course, it is going to sell out, and they're not going to be able to meet demand. But I don't expect it to be nearly as impossible to get as PS5 was.
Right. It would be one thing. It'd be one thing if it was tough to find on launch day or launch week or even launch month. But here we are closing in on 2 years since the PlayStation 5 launch, and for some people, it's been just as hard to get one today as it was on launch day, which is pretty insane. I mean,
I've never seen one for sale in person. Like never, ever.
I wish I could even go to bat for that and say, yeah, no, same here. But I'd have to leave my apartment and actually walk into a store and go, oh, look, there's one. But I don't leave my apartment or really go anywhere. So it's always fascinating to me when I go on Amazon and it's like, hey, they're available right now, and then I post it in Discord, and then like 5 minutes later they're all gone. But they are getting easier to find slowly. Amazon has actually implemented a new invitation purchase option for their Prime members. So just as an experiment, about a week ago when I first saw that, I clicked the invite button, and they were like, okay, cool. We know, like, when they're available, we'll send you a link that you can use for 48 hours to purchase one. I was like, great. Not that I'm going to use it, but I can maybe pass that link on to somebody else. I've not gotten the invitation yet. Like it's so it better than having to refresh a page every 5 seconds. But at the same time, if they're not in stock, they're just not in stock, and they can't sell it any possible way. Yeah, I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of hype around it. I think that the 6 million people who bought a PlayStation VR 1 are going to be very interested in this. I think a lot of people who jump ship to Quest are going to be very interested in this. I think people who bought a Quest and that was their first headset are going to go, "Oh man, like look at these console quality games that like this is the next evolution of VR." They're going to be interested. I think a lot of people are going to be interested. And if those numbers that keep floating around the internet, the 15 million Quest 2 numbers, which I'd love to find out if those are accurate or not. That means that the market is bigger than it's ever been, and there could be a huge shortage on PSVR 2.
Yeah, well, I think you touched on something that is going to be a factor as well, and that is the storefronts, right? Your Amazons, your Best Buys, everyone who carries consoles and accessories. They all have this past 2 years, 3 years of experience as well, and they are taking measures to mitigate some of the bot activity. So it's not going to be as easy for scalpers this time as it was a few years ago. Everyone's eyes are kind of open to what they're doing.
Yeah, and I really do think that I think it's easy to kind of forgive Sony for how the PlayStation 5 launch went down. You're like, oh, this is the first time we've ever launched a console during a pandemic. This is the first time we've ever just sold them digitally. Physical retail stores didn't get them for a really long time. But I don't think we get to forgive them twice and say,
Right.
hey, like you should have learned your lesson 2 years ago when your console launched and figured out all the problems and figured a way to mitigate those problems. So we've forgiven Sony enough. We've given them a pass long enough. And so they really do need to make sure that they have some plan to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Especially, I know a lot of cats out there were like, anyone who ever bought a PSVR 1 should be able to be first in line, right? Like send the same way that we put in the serial number for the PlayStation 5 camera adapters to get those online. We had to put our serial numbers in from the back of the breakout box. If it was something similar like that, like, hey, if you still have a PlayStation VR 1, we're going to make sure that you have the option to buy a PSVR 2 at launch. I think that's a little extreme, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, why the fuck not? Right?
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. They will never do that in a million years, because again, like they know we're going to be here, right? If it takes us a year to get one, they can take that to the bank as it is. They'd rather have 2 to 3 million new users during the launch phase. That would be a perfect scenario for them.
Yeah. I wish you guys got to see what's happening down here. I'm trying my absolute hardest to run a show while there's a cat. That's my mouse pad. She's just lying on my mouse pad. I don't know what it is, man. Like, she just desperately needs my attention when
she's a cat. It's a mouse pad. Hello.
It's my arm is what really she wants, man. She's like, give me attention. What are you doing? All right. Well, you just snuggle right up with my arm here, buddy, and I'll do my best to keep the show running. A lot of great comments in the chat. Thank you guys so much. We are keeping an eye on everybody. And so thank you for participating in the conversation. Let's see here real quick. Chrome Colossus, a.k.a. Genetic Blasphemy, the abbreviated Gamecat, with the $5 tip says, if you can't get a PSVR2, then one of the cats will give up theirs. I know that I would. And that is probably the most amazing thing I've ever heard anybody say on the face of the planet. That's very, very sweet of you. And I really hope that it doesn't ever come to that. I don't think I'd let it come to that. I would certainly be spending $1,000 with a scalper long before I asked anyone to give up their PSVR2 headset.
1,000%.
So, Wes, the big topic of today is obviously, it's in big letters across the thumbnail, is the Quest 2 games that we want brought over to PlayStation VR 2. And kind of an interesting first reaction, I think. Nihilus Ryan, the Game Feline, with the $5 tip says, give us RE4. Quest can have the rest of their subpar lineup. And I will say, man, that this is sort of the genesis of this conversation. I was kind of wondering, like obviously there's so many different topics we can tackle week after week, and this being kind of a slow news day, and me not really donning my PSVR headset all that often recently, it's kind of been a problem. I think, here I am. I'm the guy that's saying PlayStation VR like kind of saved video games for me when video games were getting stale, and then suddenly here we are, like 6 years into the PSVR 1 lifespan, and like we're not getting any new games, and I find it harder and harder to find reasons to put on my PSVR headset, and if I'm being 100% completely honest, I feel like I'm sort of falling out of love with VR, and I don't like that feeling, right? Because the last thing I want to do is like have to resort to Quest. No offense to Quest or the hardware or anything else, but like that's just not where I want to be playing games. If it was, then I would have been covering Quest games for the last few years. I would have been covering PC VR games, but I just love PlayStation VR. And so I'll tell you, Wes, the reason I suggested we do this today was because I got back into RE4 VR. And although I had some big problems with it at launch, and I was not interested because of how frequently it pulls you out of VR to do 2D cutscenes, the number of times it switches to third person when you do kicks, I kind of let that stuff get in the way for me. And now here we are in this dry spell on PlayStation VR, and I've said, well, maybe it's time to get over that and see like really what this game has to offer. And I kind of fell in love with it. And so Resident Evil 4 has been sort of the reason why we're having this conversation today. Not one of my favorites in the Resident Evil series. It's when Resident Evil started going more actiony and became, the thing I didn't like with Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. And so it's sort of always been like not a black sheep for me, just sort of when things started turning in a different direction. And I always said, well, maybe if it's in VR, it can turn me around and I can like really kind of love this game the way I love RE1, 2, 3 and Go Veronica. And I think it's kind of working. I think I'm really, really enjoying this.
Yeah, well, I mean, for all of its flaws, of which there are a few that you just noted, it is still a Resident Evil game that's made for VR. And there's something to be said for that, right? This is a AAA VR game, even though it's still, it still has kind of an older art style.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that, of course, has to do with the platform, but not completely. A lot of attention was paid to preservation of a beloved classic. This franchise has a passionate fan base, and they didn't, at least for this title. This isn't like a named remake title, right? This is a port. This is a VR port of a beloved classic action horror title,
Right.
and they wanted to preserve a lot of the game's original style, and I think they did a very effective job of that. And while it's not the best Resident Evil, as you point out, it is still a very good Resident Evil game, and VR, and as VR always does, it made this game even better.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that they did just to sort of counteract some of my earlier statements. Like I said, I don't like getting thrown into kind of a cinema mode to watch these cutscenes. For a game that was supposedly built from the ground up or rebuilt from the ground up for VR, I was like, well, these aren't the kind of things that you want to do to the player, right? If you're making something that's going to be VR AF, which I think a good part of the game is, you don't want to make these mistakes and kind of go down this road from the get-go. It's like, let me sit in the car in first person instead of watching this cutscene on a flat screen. That said, whenever you're doing your communications, this thing unfolds and it's actually in your hand, and that's way better than just switching over to a flat screen. Just grabbing things off the ground, switching weapons, reloading, everything else I feel like is just really, really, really well done, and it really does look like the GameCube original. Like, it doesn't seem like they tried to go in and change anything. Like you said, it's a faithful recreation of the original game. And I think I kind of started getting excited about playing it and about getting further into the game and being, something that I downloaded this on my Switch not that long ago. It was like, well, maybe playing it on my Switch in handheld mode will kind of make me love Resident Evil 4. I keep trying to convince myself to love Resident Evil 4, Wes. I'm trying my hardest because I know it's like there's some people out there, or a lot of people out there who for them, this is their favorite game of all time. And because they like the direction that it was heading in, right? And for me, I'm trying to find ways to love it because I do love Resident Evil as a franchise. But I do think that the quest is going to make me really get into this, which of course makes me wonder what the hell is going on with PlayStation VR 2. We saw the trailer, we saw the tease at the end of it that said PlayStation VR 2 content in development, and then they went radio silent about that. And so if we can get the PlayStation 5 version of this game that looks like it's going to be darker and grittier and scarier and like lean more into the horror element, and we get that on PlayStation VR 2, then holy crap, man. It's like, yes, this to respond to my own headline of this video, that's the version I want on PlayStation VR 2, because the Quest version has already gotten me interested. But I think if you want to sail that ship all the way home, man, then that's the way to do it for me. It's like get the PlayStation 5 version up and running on PSVR 2.
Yeah, it looks cinematic, doesn't it? It looks like you're in a very good high budget horror / thriller. It looks much more creepy than the original game was, and a lot of the things that we didn't like about the original, it looks like they're kind of coming back over more to the horror side of things with the remake. So yeah, to have that in VR would be a dream, and I just while we could sit here and speculate all day on just what the VR integration in that game is going to be, we don't know, and it's killing me that we don't know.
Yeah, no, me too, man. Me too. It's a little bit crazy. It's almost like we're watching something happen unfold. It's like, well, but what are we watching happen unfold? Are they just teasing us, or did something actually go wrong behind the scenes and go, we weren't supposed to tell you that yet. That was the wrong trailer. But pretty cool though. Looper the Underground Gamecat with the €5 says, I'm glad to hear Bryan coming back to RE4 VR. I hope the next step will be the RE2 remake PC VR mod. Dude, I don't even want to. Yep. Absolutely. Dude, every time I see...
let me know. Just let me know when you need help, Bryan. I'm always here.
Oh, no way. No way. I'm hoping that the next step for me is the RE2 first-person VR mode that will be coming on PlayStation VR 2 officially from Capcom. It's true.
That would be great.
Looper follows that up.
Go ahead.
Looper follows that tip up with the another €5 saying, I also would watch Bryan stream any of this, maybe on a separate channel or Twitch. It's possible, man. It's possible. I feel like I will say this. We're getting a little bit on the personal side at the moment, but I'll say it anyway. PlayStation VR is sort of my job, right? And so part of me today was like, oh, I should capture the footage of the Quest games that I'm playing and put those up on the channel, put those up and have them playing while we're talking about them. And I was like, man, let me just enjoy this. Right. Let me just enjoy, like, because again, I'm trying to fall back in love with VR, and some of these games really helped today. And so it's like, let me just enjoy it and not have to worry about capturing good footage or having to go in and edit the footage later. It's like, well, I'm just going to try to enjoy this and not have to worry about the work that's involved with it. And that's why retro games have been such a saving grace for me recently, because I get to play those games and not worry about what I have to do to cover them on the channel. So yeah, so you got to balance work and recreation every so often, and sometimes you have to make sacrifices in order to do it.
Right. Well, I would like to say a couple of things before we move on and get really into the meat of the conversation. First of all, obviously we've seen a few comments, not the majority, but there are a few people out there who have this sentiment that I do not want Quest 2 or Quest games on my PSVR at all.
Right.
And I certainly understand that kind of attitude. It's undeniable that the onset and the inception of standalone VR has had a negative effect on the overall quality of the VR catalog. There's no way around it. You're basically running these games on a cell phone processor. But with that said, good game developers are good game developers, and they exist on every VR platform, including this one. And while it certainly took a lot longer for me to come up with a list of great games from the Quest library today than it would have if we were looking at, say, PC. I did come up with a list of very good games, and people need to understand that while there are a lot of stinkers on Quest, there are certainly gems as well.
Oh, and let's be clear, there's stinkers on PSVR 1 as well. I mean, if anybody played A Fungus in My Garden, like that, they're like, oh, we're going to bring our game to Quest. It's like, no, don't also inflict your terribleness on them too. Like, we've already had to deal with that game. Like, don't make other people play it too. And so we've got plenty of trash over on PSVR 1, right? If your console is even remotely successful, or if your peripheral is even remotely successful, you're going to have shovelware, you're going to have trash on it. It's just how it is. That's why we always judge every headset based on the best stuff on it, not the worst stuff, because, man, even Netflix has garbage, right? It's like, I love Netflix, and they've been providing some great content, but holy crap, there's some trash on there. So
the other thing I wanted to say is that at the end of the day, we're both VR content creators, and the reason why we're halfway decent at what we do is because we do it a lot. And the main thing that we do here and over on my channel is we play VR games and we talk about them. And if Bryan just has to stop playing VR games for an entire year, he's going to get rusty, man. This is what we do. To be honest, Bryan, I think it's admirable that you've lasted this long without really going in depth on anything good from Quest. But I mean, guys, what do you expect him to do? Just not play VR for a year? Like, there's good VR games over here. There's no reason. He has the hardware already. There's no reason that he shouldn't be playing it. So I'm glad this day has finally come. You're in store for some good stuff, man. Waiting 3 years to really get into the Quest catalog. It's had time now for a few good titles to build up. So you've actually got a pretty good 6 months ahead of you if you really lean into it before PSVR2 gets here.
Wally, sorry we didn't get to your tip. Right, let's get that though. Wally is now a GameCat ranger, specifically a White Tiger with a Canadian $5 tip. Says, hey Bryan, hey Wally, I won't buy one until you get one, PSVR2. So let me know as soon as you get it. Also, any PSVR2 reactions from your replaceable cable source? No, I don't have any updated impressions or any updated information to share quite yet. I think we're gonna need some official information relatively soon. But again, all of the information channels have been kind of clouded recently because it does seem like Sony's like sending out mixed messages intentionally in order to like weed out some leakers. So I'm going to keep my head down and my nose clean, and hopefully we'll get some more information soon. I saw some people in the chat saying, kind of like in response to Donatello's tip, saying the thought on playing Quest games on my PSVR2 makes me sick. I think it's a perfectly fine first reaction to have, but what I want to make sure that we are clear about, and I definitely saw some great comments in the chat that perfectly exemplified what I'm about to say, and I can't find them right now, so I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm just reading your comment without reading your comment. I think we're going to have so many great games on PSVR2, so many AAA games, so many hybrid games, so many first-party games, commissioned third-party games, that this is all just going to be filler, right? I would love if PlayStation VR2 became a place where all VR games that have really ever been made just came together to get a second chance, another lease on life. I'm sure that there's a lot of games. Wes was trying to tell me recently on Wilson's Heart, right? Super high budget. The voice actor cast in that game, I'm sure, was one of the most expensive voice acting budgets of maybe any VR game ever because of all the famous people that are in it. I can't imagine, no matter how well Wilson's Heart sold, that they recouped their losses on that or sold or made as much money as they needed to. It would be great if games like Wilson's Heart made it to PlayStation VR 2 just so people could finally play it, right? Is this gonna exemplify the best of the best on PlayStation VR 2? No. Is Walkabout Mini Golf going to exemplify the best of the best on PlayStation VR 2? No. But imagine being able to play all of the VR games that really deserve that need to be played, having access to them all in one place. I think it's kind of a fantasy that I've built up in my head, but really this could be the biggest VR headset launch we've ever seen, and so developers would be out of their mind not to bring their games over if as long as there's no legal obligations keeping that from happening.
Yeah, and beyond that, and by the way, that's a beautiful dream, Brian. I hope that does one day come to fruition, whether it be PSVR 2 or PSVR 3 or some other future platform that we haven't even considered yet. But we talk about this on our channel a lot, that there's two main categories of VR games. We call them main course games, which are the deep, meaty titles that you can sink your teeth into, story-driven campaigns oftentimes, things that take 8, 10, 12 hours to complete. And then you have palate cleansers, right? You have stuff that's typically really arcadey, games that you can pick up and play for 30 to 60 minutes and put it back down for a month, come back, played a few more minutes. And I think the biggest issue with the Quest catalog is that there's a lot more palate cleansers than there are main course games. But with that said, there's a place for both. I don't always want to sit down and take on the kind of commitment that some of these, the best games, let's be honest, the best games demand time. Sometimes I just want to play something that's fun, and these palate cleanser style games are the good ones.
Yeah.
Are just as necessary as the good main course games.
And I feel that way about everything, man. I feel that way when I pick up my Switch. I feel that way when I play a game on my PlayStation 5 flat screen. Like there are games that I want to sink tons of hours into, and then there's games that I just want to dick around in for 20 minutes here or there. So it's really good to have an assortment.
Agreed.
Brexper says Bryan is my dream. I'm assuming that there's a typo involved there. I don't think that's what he meant to say. If it is, I love you. Dude, let's kick off these proceedings with a game that I have been like really wanting to play. I downloaded it, I bought it forever ago, and have not gotten around to playing it. Not fully, until today. This is Cosmodread by White Door Games. If you're not familiar with White Door Games, maybe you are, especially if you watch AJ's channel, because this is the same dude, single one-man dev team who made Dread Halls. Dude, this game just has, first of all, talk about working within your limitations, right? You get these enclosed spaces, and you're working not only with development limitations in terms of, hey, we don't have a huge budget because we're a one-man dev team. Also, we're working, with the Quest 2 and all this other stuff, and just trying to make sure that your game is the best it can be with the limitations that you've got. And I think he killed it. I think he absolutely killed it. This is an extremely, extremely successful and everything I'd want from a follow up to Dread Halls. You're on a ship. You're running around. You're trying to maintain your oxygen levels and your health levels. There's danger around every corner, or at least it seems like there is. I'm going to tell you right now, Wes. I kept telling myself, I don't want to spoil this for when I finally play it on PlayStation VR2. That's what, every time I jump into the Quest 2 version, I go, I don't want to spoil this. And that's really why I'm dropping out. I proved to myself today that I'm a fucking liar, because I was like, I'm going to play this for the show today so I have an opinion. And I still wanted to drop out because, oh, guess what? I was scared. That's the real reason I didn't want to play it, because I was fucking terrified. And so again, working with the limitations, I think the sound design here, it's just so spot on. It sounds like there's a monster above you, in the walls around you. There's noises that keep you on your toes, that make you constantly turn around. Dude, I love this game, and if this gets a PSVR2 version, I'm gonna be so thrilled, because I can only imagine what it already looks good. What a little boost in graphical fidelity is going to do for this. It's terrifying.
That's basically what it got on PC. A little boost. It isn't 1-to-1, but they are very similar. But what you do get is certainly some more realistic lighting and a little bit more detail to the textures. But again, this is a game that doesn't need much improvement. It's a very good game, and it's funny that even though this is a very different game than Dread Halls, I feel like a lot of what makes this game great is the same thing that made Dread Halls great. Dark corridors, you never know what's around the next corner, and absolutely masterful sound design. You nailed it a minute ago. This game will scare you. You'll think that the walls are going to kill you, that the air is going to poison you. Like it's a frightening experience. And the way that he structured the game is like such that you have to be urgent. Like your oxygen's going to run out if you don't keep going, but you can't go too fast either, because again, you don't know what's around the next corner. So I feel like it takes what Dreadhouse did very, very well and improves upon that by adding more layers, more depth to the gameplay through the kind of roguelike type features that have been added into the gameplay loop. It's a very good game, and one of the best horror games on Quest.
I do have to say, part of the reason it scares me so much is because I feel like they don't explain a whole lot. Like, it's sort of up to you to jump in and figure that shit out. And even though whenever you pick up items, you can sort of point to it and it gives you a tiny description. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Wes. Are there like tutorials that I'm missing? Because really, I'm just walking around going, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing? Like there's food items that like I can't eat. Even they've got the little green like leaf thing on it, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that means, right? I see that like I get attacked, and I was like, oh, I need to like up my health, but I don't know how to do that, and like so the kind of unknowing, like I don't even know if I have the tools I need to survive or to succeed at getting through this alive. That kind of works for me. It was like, Bryan, you fucking figure it out on your own. We're not going to tell you how to do this. And I was like, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I guess I had a little bit of an advantage when I played this game at launch that you don't have now. People were talking about it back then, and we all kind of figured certain things out together. But that time has long since gone. So, yeah, I could imagine it's a bit of a different experience for you, not having any kind of like, conversation to lean back on, kind of figure out a few of the finer points. But what you're talking about here, on a very quick side note, is actually one of my big pet peeves in VR games, is having food you can't eat, having medicine that doesn't heal you.
Mm-hmm.
This some of this stuff actually looks like should be a usable item, and it's not, and that always gets on my nerves. But in the context of this game, there's a crafting element to this game. So all of these items that you're finding have some sort of significance and use.
Nice. That's really good to hear. My final thought on this again. I would have loved to spend a whole day playing each of these games before this show, but there's just not time in order to do it. So maybe I didn't take a deep dive as far as I would have liked in each of these. But I will say the time I spent in Cosmodread, the time I spent in the other games we're going to talk about, really, really, really made me go, I can't wait to spend more time in this. And that's something that VR hasn't done in a little while. So I'm really excited. So the final thing I want to say about Cosmodread is that I just love that, unlike Dread Halls, and I don't know if Dread Halls had motion support on PC, but having to open doors with both of your hands makes you feel really vulnerable. And so I'm like opening doors and then like backing up as fast as possible. Being like, what's behind the door? Okay, it's fine. I'm gonna walk through it now. Because I'm trying to carry a weapon in one hand. I'm scared. I'm gonna hide behind my weapon. So I do like that. That was a big improvement for me over Dread Halls.
I'm curious, Brian. It takes a little while before you encounter any kind of enemies in this game. I'm curious as to how many that you've actually laid eyes on, because some of these things are grotesque.
Just the one.
Just the one. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
It took me a little while to figure out, what I was doing, and I fumble around. I think more than most people do. I think it always takes me a while longer to get my bearings and figure out. Oh, hey, there's been a map on my wrist this whole time. Who the fuck knew? I was just walking around in circles. I didn't even realize. I think it always takes me a little bit longer to get my bearings in any game than it does for most people, and so. I finally was like, oh, I've had a key card for this door for like the last 15 minutes. I didn't even fucking realize it, And, I just died because I couldn't find any oxygen, but I had one in my inventory the whole time. That kind of stuff happened to me quite a bit for the first, couple run throughs. And so, yeah, I basically only got through the first key card door and found my first enemy. And I walked up to him and he didn't seem like he was grotesque. But at the same time, I was like, he doesn't seem like he's going to bother me. I'm just going to walk away. He seems like he's kind of like just hanging out over here. And I walked away, and he walked with me. And I was like, oh God, this isn't going to go well. Stay away. And that was sort of where I died.
Yeah. I knew exactly what happened when you said one. I already knew the scenario because it happened to me. It happened to everyone. And see, this is what I'm talking about. Yes, this is a PlayStation VR channel. We love PSVR above all, right? And I say that as someone who loves all VR platforms. The PSVR library is number one. Now, with that said, who doesn't want to see Bryan play this? I would love to watch you play this. And I get it. You sometimes it's nice to not have extra work to do and to be able to just enjoy something for yourself. Yeah. But I would be interested, not to pull a Miles on you here. I would be interested if there happened to be a poll out there and you polled your community. Would you like to see Bryan play games that are not PSVR games? I'd be interested to see what the results of that poll would be.
I'm not telling
you to do that. I'm not telling you to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I would be interested to see.
It is funny, man. The community is so is so supportive of me and the channel that. The super supportive people out there have said two things. One, please review Quest games because I love your reviews more than anyone else's, and I want to see your reviews, your coverage of these games. Which thank you so much. Never in a million years did I think that anybody would respect, the shit that I'm saying up here to the point of being like, oh, this is my favorite reviewer, my favorite streamer, my favorite whatever. So that's amazing to me. But then there's the other hardcore part of the community that's like, fuck you. Stop talking about Quest games. This isn't a Quest channel, right? This is 100%, and that's kind of where I am in my head. Or I'm like, listen, like the Quest is fine, but these games I feel like deserve a little bit more love and a little bit more attention, and I really do hope that these games will make it their way over to PSVR2 to get the attention they deserve.
Right. And by the way, I get it. It doesn't matter if we're talking about this topic or any other divisive subject. The people who are negative are always much louder, or at least it seems that way as someone who's at the head of a community or a channel. So I get it, man. I totally get it.
Yeah. All right, man. We just spent like way too long on the very first game we were going to talk
Right.
about, which is no surprise, man. It's Wes and Brian's excellent adventure. We know how this goes week after week. We go, this is going to be a 45-minute show. 3 hours later, we're like, man, Wes has other shit to do today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
3 hours later, we cut half of our content out that we planned on talking about.
right. But let's bounce this back and forth ping pong style, man. Throw a game at me. Sell me on something.
I talked about a moment ago about main course meals
Mm-hmm.
and palate cleansers, and I'm going to kick it off with a palate cleanser. But the reason why is because it's just such a great game. It's fun. It's a fun arcade style game called Swarm. And if you're someone out there who loves grappling in VR games, and we don't have a lot of games, especially in the PSVR library, that really lets us go crazy with our grappling hooks and our swinging.
Yeah.
Spider-Man in VR, as so many people like to refer to it. You're going to love this game because while it is arena based and it's an arcade shooter, and the arenas admittedly are not very large from a horizontal point of view. These arenas can be very large from a vertical point of view, meaning you get very, very high in this game. And beyond that, this game is breakneck fast.
Nice.
So imagine if you would like an arena-based grappling game that's breakneck speeds and then add like Galaga into it as a first-person shooter. So like you've got guns on your hands. There are enemy creatures and craft being basically teleported into your arena, and they follow lines and patterns like old school Galaga. It is so fun, this game, and it's one of the most underrated games on Quest. I feel like people who have played it, most people who have played it, absolutely love it, and I'm surprised it's not been a bigger hit than it actually has been.
Yeah, this was I'd been keeping my eye on this game for a while because once it was announced for Quest, I immediately, this is what generally what I do, I get in touch with developers and be like, hey, your game looks great. Any chance of you bringing it to PlayStation VR? And they were like, oh yeah, absolutely. We are definitely bringing this to PlayStation VR. I don't think it's coming to PlayStation VR, guys. Like, not to burst anyone's bubble, but here we are, July 13th, 2022. I don't think it's coming. But it's sad for me though. It's sad for me because I only in the last couple of years, I've always kind of dabbled with shoot 'em ups or shmups on retro consoles. Always dabbled, none of them really ever got their hooks in me. Recently, dude, I've been so obsessed with Gradius and having played Yuki in on PlayStation VR from Arvory Games. Yuki really made me go, oh wow, this does work so well in VR, but it also made me recognize what I love about shoot 'em ups and what I don't like about shoot 'em ups, and like it started to differentiate which ones I like and which ones I don't, and so this one, especially when you say that there's patterns involved with the enemies, that for me, like the memorization part of it is part of mastering any shmup, and so that makes me more excited for this than I was prior.
Well, imagine this, Brian. Imagine that you're basically grappling in circles, right? And there's platforms everywhere, right, that are grappling points.
Mm-hmm.
Below you, a shark tank. If you fall, you're dead. Well, it's not something that you fall and you just start right back up. If you fall, you're dead. You can't stop. You have to keep going. All of a sudden, all of these enemies, some of them small, some of them mid-sized, some of them bosses, showing up in your space, and they're right in your face. Again, this is kind of claustrophobic from a vertical standpoint. So what you do is you grab, as you're accelerating in circles, you grab a higher platform and you throw yourself to the very tip top of the dome. And now all of a sudden, these like dozens of enemies are all underneath your feet. You look down, and as you fall back to the shark tank, you're blasting enemies the entire time. And just before you hit the water, you grab a platform and you start all over again. Nice. That's the loop in this game. And beyond that, there is a, kind of a backstory. They tell a story with comic book panels as you go, and voice acting, good voice acting, and has an awesome soundtrack. It's just a very high quality game. And I hope you try it before we move on to the next gen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, people have been raving about this for quite a while now. The second you brought it up, I saw the VR grid in the chat. What up, Bryan? Just go bonkers. Go
Yeah,
bonkers.
great game from a great studio. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they have coming next. Hopefully it's a PSVR version or at least a PSVR2 version.
Yeah, I can't. Again, if it hasn't been announced for PSVR one, I can't imagine it coming to PSVR one. Did you already say? Is there multiplayer in this, or is this a single player?
They just added multiplayer, but the multiplayer I don't think is for the main game mode. That they've added like multiplayer modes, which are like, you know, timing based things, race style things, shooting challenges, things like that. But there is multiplayer, something that has been added probably within the last 3 to 6 months.
Interesting. Yeah, this to me just screams multiplayer, and so the fact that it launched without it is a little bit surprising. And I guarantee you, the reason it didn't get more attention than it did, I think, the Quest community, I think, is so gung ho about multiplayer games, and I just think the tides have really turned over the last few years when it comes to people's appreciation for single player games. Every time a single player game comes out, the very first question is, are you ever going to add multiplayer? Like, that's immediate. So I can really see that being part of the issue here.
Yeah, well, yeah, it certainly has been a part of the conversation from launch up until the moment that they actually implemented it.
Wes, I got to give a shout out real quick here to our friend. Wow. Hey,
What's up, friend?
This is why everything on this show should be scripted, because forgetting somebody's name mid sentence is really not what you want to do when you're calling someone your friend. What I meant to say, I want to give a shout out to our friend Jimmy Bowers from End Dreams. He's the PR guy over there, the community manager, because literally it was 2 hours before the show, and I was like, and he's in the middle of all this. He's in the middle of like demonstrating games at a developer conference or whatever it is, right? And I messaged him and was like, "Hey, dude, I really want to play Phantom Covert Ops before GAMESCAST tonight and talk about it." And I was like, "Do you happen to have a review key that you could send over to me?" And like, dude, within 12 minutes, like, dude's so busy doing all this other crazy shit IRL, right? And within 12 minutes, he had a key for me. So thank you very much to Jimmy, and of course, End Dreams as a whole. And I got to play Phantom Covert Ops today, something that I've been wanting to play for a while. What you're seeing here is the PC VR footage. You can tell there's a huge graphical difference, but I will say that it looks decent on the Quest 2. This is essentially what people are calling is Metal Gear Kayak, right?
Yeah, and we laughed at this game when it was first announced. Like, it's such at first glance, a ridiculous concept, right? Like a stealth first-person shooter that doesn't allow you to get out of the water. You're going to stay in the water the whole time.
I know where you're heading to the point where you say, but once you play it, I gotta say,
once you play it,
but
exactly.
Seriously, still, I was playing today and going, I'm seriously never gonna get out of this thing. Like, I was still laughing while I was playing today. I was like, I feel like my covert mission here could be so easily thwarted with just one dude sitting on a bridge looking at the fucking river that I'm going down. So even in execution, I do feel like it's kind of ridiculous. However, the execution is so well done that like you got to give it a pass.
Yeah, and it's funny because this game features all of the things that really make this kind of story-driven stealth game good. Like, there are, I guess you would call them kind of cinema sequences where the NPCs in front of you have conversations that tell the stories, but you're always just kind of floating outside of a window, like watching this or some kind of a platform that's hanging out into the water, or you're going under a bridge. And you're taking it in from that perspective. So it's kind of comical, right? But they still kind of hit on all the notes that make this genre of game good. And it's a good time. My really only real legitimate complaint with the game is the length, although it is significantly longer than End Dream's latest game, Fracked. So how short is it really?
Yeah, I was actually, wondering how much I could get through before today's show, and so I did an HLTB.com search, and it said it was 6 hours. Which is that accurate?
It would take somebody like me or you 6 hours. I have seen people play this in like 3.5 to 4. So,
Oh, because you and I explore every single corner and really take our
right,
time, and yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that is very Wes and Brian excellent adventure of us. Uh, Shout out to Eric in the chat. What up, Mash Daddy? Cool. Yeah, man. This is. I will say again, expecting. I mean, people. I heard great things about it, and so I wasn't going in expecting anything bad for sure. But there was something that just worked so well about this ridiculous concept and all. I jumped in. It felt really really great to control your kayak just by doing the motion that you'd expect that you have to do. You can there's a button to hold for to do tight turns. Getting yourself from point A to point B and being able to be stealthy and making sure that you're not being seen by the guards, hiding out in the tall grass, and like you said, listening to the conversations. It all just feels really natural. I don't know how stealthy I'm going to actually be because within about 10 minutes, I was like, can I just kill this guy? Yes, I know it's still tutorial time. And they're like, come on, Brian, you really need to be able to sneak by this guy and like, and killing people, violence should be a last resort. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got all these guns and stuff. Like, let me use the guns. They're like, oh, you should shoot this thing over here to make a distraction. I was like, but I could also just shoot him in the head. And so I really just want to kill motherfuckers. So like, right. That's
Well,
part of the reason we play video games. However, uh, you know, I do kind of want to play it the way they want me to and see where it takes me.
well, I'll just say this to you: do what feels natural, because this is not Aspire One. Like before you get to the end, there are going to be situations that you have to be stealthy, or else they're going to kill you. You're still kind of early on in the game. You're finding one, two, sometimes three guys at a time. But when you start to get to like other areas, there are guys that are more heavily armed,
Nice.
and they are in greater numbers, and it does pick up the challenge quite a bit in not very much farther from where you're at right now. So just play however it feels natural, and get to the end if you can.
Well, I'm certainly going to give it my best because, like I said, my PSVR headset's just sort of been sitting over there, and so in order to keep playing VR games, I got to do something. And this
Right.
one just feels good, man. It feels good. I don't.
Yeah, and this is a legitimate candidate too. I feel like for a good game, or at least a good franchise to see further titles from In Dreams on PSVR2 with, again, hopefully we'll be able to get out of the boat next time. But even if not, I mean, I'm sure it'll be great.
I mean, yeah, and it is funny to see these games with the Oculus, Oculus Studios logo in them. You know, where they got obviously were funded with Oculus money, but we've seen plenty of games make their way over that were also funded with Oculus money that made their way over to PlayStation VR. Some way sooner than others. We saw Shadowpoint made it, right? That was obviously an Oculus Studios game that was or being funded by Oculus Studios. We got Vader Immortal, right? And so and I don't think those are the only two examples. Those are just the first two that came to mind.
Mage's Tale. Mage's Tale was an Oculus funded
Was it
exclusive
really?
for a while.
I
Yeah,
don't think I knew that.
yeah,
Nice.
true.
So yeah, I really, obviously we want to see what End Dreams is working on next. We want to see their next big title. We want to see what End Dreams Escalation is working on. Their AAA studio. But I think, again, this is something I feel like we'd be kind of missing out on if especially people who are fans of End Dreams work. I don't know if that's a thing. I feel like I'm that kind of person who I'm like, oh man, I just love this developer, so I can't wait to see what they're making next. I think most people out there are like, oh, I just want to play a good game, But for me, it's usually tied to a developer. So I would like to be able to play all of End Dreams games all in the same place. And
That would
this
be
is
great.
this is from my first impressions, the hour I've spent with it. I mean, to me, one of their best games.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And while it's a very different game than Fract, I feel that they're very comparable in terms of quality level. They're both very good games for very different reasons.
Yeah, agreed. All right, man, I'm going to ping pong it back to you. What do you got for me? Sell me on something.
Well, this one's a bit different. This next one, I wanted to mention as well. I guess I should just be honest here. I've only really been in this next title twice, technically, and both of those times within the last week. But I was extremely impressed this past Friday when I checked out VR chat for the
Oh,
first time. I had a great tour guide, by the way. Shout out Brad Lynch, aka Sadly It's Bradley. He was our next guest on location on Virtual Strangers, and he lives in VR chat, man. He's one of those people,
that sounds
and he
about right.
really
From everything
yeah,
I know about Sally is Bradley, that checks out.
yeah, and he wanted to show it off to me, and I got to say, man, I was impressed. Um, it isn't just a place where people can go make static rooms to hang out in. It's kind of like Rec Room with even more functionality than Rec Room, and also photorealism. It doesn't look like Minecraft when you get in there. Some of the stuff that Brad showed me uh, looks like it could come straight out of a AAA VR game.
Oh.
So these creators are very talented, and it really got me thinking. And by the way, I am going somewhere with this, and it isn't really that I so much hope to see VR chat by name on the PlayStation platform, but it really got me thinking what multiplayer could mean for a title like Dreams, which is a robust set of creator tools that have already been used to make some amazing experiences on the PlayStation platform. If they were to integrate multiplayer into this thing, uh, not only do I think that we could see a very, um, a lot of engaging concepts coming from the talented community, but I think it could be a second breath of fresh air for this title that, let's be honest, really didn't perform like it was expected to. Like Dreams was supposed to be a lot bigger deal by now than it actually is. And I feel like if they were to implement multiplayer and attract this type of user from the 100 million plus PlayStation audience out there, we could have something that's even bigger, even more robust, even higher quality, and more highly adopted than VR chat is. And VR chat, in case you didn't know, is one of the most popular titles in VR right now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's obviously so many reasons why this just won't work on PlayStation VR2 or PlayStation 5, and that's all it comes down to Sony, right? Being a closed platform and making sure that you are not infringing on other people's IPs or copyrights, blah blah blah, the whole thing. Yeah. However, if you played Dreams recently, you can't go 5 feet without running into a Five Nights at Freddy's game that some Five Nights fan has created, or a ton of other things that have just absolutely are just fan creations of certain games or whatever. So you've got to wonder where the line is with this kind of stuff, and how many concessions that Sony's willing to make in order for their next gen headset to be successful. And I do think if you want to attract the younger crowd, this is one of those concessions that you have to make. You have to figure out a legal avenue to work around the things that have been legal issues prior. So I do hope we see this, not because I'm terribly interested in it, but because it would be a huge step forward for Sony, like kind of like unleashing the shackles that console games are known to have.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not a big fan of social VR applications either, and I did not expect to enjoy my time in VR chat very much at all. But it was very much the same attitude that I had when I first started going in the Rec Room, which I was very late to the party on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm coming away from my first experience the same way I did with Rec Room. If you go in with friends and you keep it private, don't go in where the squeakers are. VR chat can be very engaging. There's almost 5,500 worlds in VR chat, and they can be curated through online databases. You don't have to get into VR to check out which worlds that you're going to visit next time. You can kind of go in with a list. And while there is, certainly with the avatars, there are a lot of copyright and trademark lines that are being crossed.
Right.
But that really isn't what makes this great. It's the fact that you're allowing the community of creators out there, which again, Dreams has a vast and very talented community. The fact that you're allowing these people to create, at the same time that they're creating their art, they're creating um, social spaces that are alive, with functionality. Again, it isn't all just art, that they're able to work in functionality just like they are with dreams. Um, so again, it isn't so much about bringing VR chat over to PSVR2, but I would really like to see a multiplayer element being brought into dreams. And if they want to be super strict with the copyright stuff, then they can, or at least as much as they have been up to this point. And I feel like it won't really hinder things at all. I feel like, um, again, it could draw a very big crowd and get those servers to where they need to be to ensure another 5 years plus of development for this title.
Wes, I need your help.
Sure, anything.
Because one of the games I want to talk about today, it's a horror game. And so immediately you're like, well, obviously you're going to love this, right? It's a horror game. How could it possibly be bad? How could Bryan possibly not like it? Whatever, right? It's a game that I bought a long time ago based on somebody's recommendation, and I played a little bit. It was like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like it's for me. And then I played more today going, I'm just like Resident Evil 4 VR, just like all these other games that I haven't really given a fair shot to. I'm going to give this a fair shot today, and it's Lies Beneath. Okay, another Oculus Studios game. I'm missing something here, man. I really am, because it's the art style is cool, right? Kind of has this comic booky type look to it. I feel like the interactions are pretty cool. Like I like, it really simplifies a lot of what's going on. You find ammo and you just grab it and then it just immediately disintegrates, so you know that it's in your inventory. It's everything just kind of works. It's very simplified, but I felt like even within the first 45 minutes, I was like just getting bored of the gameplay loop. It wasn't scary to me. It wasn't terribly interesting to me. I was just walking down a path and just following the path and following the path and following the path and following the path, killing some enemies, following the path, killing some enemies, following the path, killing some enemies. And it wasn't doing anything for me, right? And I know I'm missing something here. And so I need you to sell me on this game, to convince me to keep moving forward, or tell me right now that if I don't like the first hour, then I should just stop because it doesn't get better.
Well, it's interesting because the gameplay loop pretty much is what it is. It is a very linear game, and it's a shooter primarily. It's just as much an action game as it is a horror game. I do feel like, I'm assuming that you played Resident Evil and Cosmodread before you played this game, right? Like today?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a little bit of that there, right? Like if a game, another horror game, really resonates with you, and you're kind of in the mood for this certain style of scare, and then you come into something that's primarily an action game, it might not quite land as much as it would have otherwise. Now, with that said, this game does get better as it goes. While it is linear, and it's very much a shooter from start to finish. Your arsenal of weapons grows. The story becomes a lot more entertaining. The areas that you get into become a lot bigger. So even though it is
That'll help.
Linear, it doesn't seem as linear a little bit later. The path remains narrow, but the areas kind of branch out a little bit better and become a little bit more visually diverse. I know the early areas of this game are very samey. Like even through the first like 3 or 4 chapters, it's all pretty much woods and a path for you to walk on. But you get bigger areas, you get bigger, more difficult enemies to deal with, and some of these enemies are terrifying. They're grotesque, even though you can't fully sell out because it is cel shaded comic book. Like if it were photo real, it would land a lot better and scare you a lot more. I do feel like one of the necessary components for a game to scare you is present here, and that is great sound design. That these things sound vicious, especially as you go on and face some of the bigger enemies. So a year and a half ago, I would have been sure. I would tell you without doubt, keep going. I'm sure you're going to like this. But I've said these words to you before about other games, and it turned out not to be the truth. So I would suggest that you keep playing. I hope that you're not playing on easy. I hope that you're at least playing it on normal difficulty.
Always normal.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, because it is a challenging game, which for me is a big thing. I hate it when games are too easy. This one is not that. This one is challenging, and if you like shooting stuff in VR, if you like a dark story, and you like this art style, which it looks pretty good, then I think you'll like this game if you keep going.
Yeah. A lot of great comments from the chat of people encouraging me, I think, to keep going. Decepticon says, it's more cool looking than scary. It's one you got to play through, though. Let's see. Awesome
for what it's worth,
Mhm.
for what it's worth, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all.
I like Lies Beneath a lot more than Cosmodread.
Really?
I like it a lot more. Yeah, I do.
That is worth something. Awesome Tatum says combat has a decent flow. Dan Kiefer says it's pretty choppy, pretty hacky, pretty bloody. Therefore, it is good. Yeah, interesting.
Some of the art and scenes, just the scenery in it, makes it worth it just by itself. Some of the things that you see, just so cool looking. As someone, I believe we had a conversation before that you used to collect comics as well and read them quite a bit in your younger days. You're going to appreciate some of the art that you see before the end of this thing. It seems like some of the indie comics that used to be on the shelf when we were collecting.
Nice. Well, I'm intrigued, man. I'm intrigued. I will say like that. I think I want to include this just to say, like, just not batting 1,000 here as far as my experience today went. I was like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm in the mood for some new VR stuff. I'm in the mood to play my quest, right? It's like I'm just going to put all my preconceived notions, all my thoughts about the quest aside. I'm just going to play the crap out of it, wire included, because God knows I don't want the battery to die. And so in this one, for whatever reason, the other ones were really roped me in, and this one just didn't do it yet. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give up on it.
I think that you should finish RE4 first, or quit playing RE4 and play this one first, because they're very similar gameplay loops, and RE4 is just so much more game than Lies Beneath is in every category, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, with all the crafting and the different items you can collect and whatever, and just the inventory management, all that stuff, really just makes me go with Resident Evil 4. Just like, yes, this is just a full-fledged game. Like, this was not. Yes, it wasn't made for VR, but man, you can tell that there's a AAA studio behind it.
Right.
MRI's in the chat with the $10 tip says, question, I'm on the fence about buying Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. Is it worth picking up? I think he's poking fun at maybe you or me, or maybe the or maybe the conversation that Wraith always creates between the two of us.
Well, I would suggest that if MRI Gamer isn't a Patreon supporter of $5 or more,
he is, baby.
That you might want to consider doing that, because we're going to answer this question very soon. But your short answer is, last time I checked, this title was on sale, and yes, absolutely, I would recommend it.
I will even say, for my disappointments with Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife, if we're taking the question seriously, MRI, for the disappointments I had with it, there are a few good moments, I think, that when it goes on sale for it was like super cheap the last time it went on sale, like half price or $10 or something. It was crazy. That if you get around like $10, I think you'll get your $10 out of it. I don't think it should have ever been priced at $30, which I'm pretty sure it was at launch. And I just don't feel like that's the right price for it. It does, at no point does it feel like a $30 game. Snafu with the $5 tip says, yo, detached the tensioners on my PSVR, and it feels like a brand new headset. So much more comfortable. Never heard it recommended here. Ever try it? Detach the tensioners, like the stretchy things?
I'll bet you. Yeah, the stretchy things. I bet you anything that Snafu has a V2 headset, a version 2, one of the newer ones.
Okay.
Not one of the OG ones like we have. Because I've heard this from other people that they don't find the PSVR2 or the PSVR to be comfortable at all, because it's too tight. It doesn't sit right on their head. And I have a huge head, and my PSVR is the most comfortable headset I've ever had on. So I've come to realize that these people that say this all have the Gen 2 PSVR.
Yeah.
So I think it's slightly different, and I would imagine that's what's going on here.
When I upgraded from my V1, because what happened is when Des joined the channel, I bought him a PlayStation 4, gave him my V1, and then I upgraded to a V2. It was super tight. It really was. I've got a pretty big head too. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I was like, oh man. And I will tell you, like, I don't know what happened with me that was different than everyone else out there, but mine loosened up. Like the tensioners, since now we're officially calling it that because Snafu named them that, they just sort of like loosened up a little bit over time, because I use my PlayStation VR. I mean, especially back then, like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And so just having them stretched frequently loosened it up and it kind of just got real comfortable on my head over the course of just a couple weeks. But I remember putting it on for the first time and going, Jesus, why is this so tight? Was the PSVR 1 or V1 this tight at launch? And I don't remember it being that. And especially since I put it on so many people's heads where they were like they would have complained, right? I would have heard them go, this is really tight. Is it supposed to be this tight? But no one ever said that. So yeah, it had something to do with the V2. But also like, I would say get a mannequin head or something that about the same shape or size as a mannequin head and just boom, stretch it and leave it stretched out on the mannequin head. Because I think that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to kind of like loosen up over time. So when you're not using it, I would say just fucking do it. But I guess Snafu found his own way. Just remove them altogether. Which
there you go.
I'm very curious to see how that works. Very curious. Twitcher has an added. He's got an addendum to our Wraith conversation. He says he went in with Bryan's criticisms truly in mind, and I've been enjoying Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. Cool.
Yeah, I just think it didn't land well with you, Bryan. I think that what you were expecting was just so vastly different from what was there that it just completely missed.
I can 100% say that is an accurate statement, Wes. I was expecting something much different, meaning much better. But can't wait to have a conversation. We've alluded to it. We might as well just say it. Wes and I are going to have a full-on 30-minute conversation about Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife for the $5 Patreon supporters on a new episode of Why We Love coming up soon. Can't wait to do that, man. We're looking forward to it. So you and I have never taken the gloves off and just fucking pounded each other relentlessly, which sounds way more sexual than I meant it, but I'm kind of enjoying that too. Dude, sell me on one more before we wrap up this conversation. One more Quest game that we desperately want to come to PlayStation VR 2, or justice will not have been done.
Well, this next one I put on here because I feel like it's one of those forgotten games that used to be a favorite, a staple back in the early days of VR, but has gone on to kind of fade away. But I'd like to see another version of it, or even the original, come to PSVR 2, and I think that it's a very real possibility because Robo Recall was developed mostly by Epic Games, which, as we all know, is a close partner with Sony, a place that has offered to do a PSVR 2 launch game, as we've talked about a few times before. Mm-hmm. This is a wave shooter, but it's a very high quality AAA level of wave shooter. It's physics based. It's not all shooting. Like you can grab these enemies as well and tear them apart with your bare hands, and it feels great. It's just such a polished experience, and it's so fun to play. And I feel like it's very immersive. And I feel like the game's the things that make this game as good as it is would really shine through on a next gen headset like PSVR 2, with the advanced haptics, with the adaptive triggers, and with the OLED panels, 4K OLED panels with wider field of view. I feel like Robo Recall would be amazing on that headset. So whether it be this version, well, when I say this version, I mean the PC version. It is scaled back slightly for the Quest. Still good on Quest, not nearly as good. But I would either like to see the PC version be brought to PSVR 2 with a feature update, or just see a whole new Robo Recall title from Epic. That would be great. The other reason I wanted to mention this one is for the studio that helped Epic develop this title, and that's Drifter, which is a small VR studio made up with former AAA former developers that worked at AAA studios. Everything that they bring to VR is super high quality. Drifter brought us Lies Beneath, which we just talked about. They worked on Robo Recall. They also did a game called Gunheart, which was excellent. It was outstanding. And
supposed to come to PSVR, never did.
Yeah, wow, that's really a shame because Gunheart's really good. It has everything that people like about After the Fall, but it's a lot. Well, it's I hate to say it, but it's done a lot better than After the Fall was done. So yeah, man, I really I'm a fan of Drifter, and I hope that we can get them on the console side of things. There's about 4 or 5 studios that kind of are in this space for me that have never done PlayStation games that I feel we need to make this happen next gen.
This is an interesting trailer because some of the things I'm looking for in this trailer, the trailer's not showing me. I mean, graphically it looks great, and some of the gameplay mechanics about catching a bullet in midair and actually throwing it back as a weapon looks really cool. However, I don't see any locomotion going on here. Do you get to move around these environments?
Now it's probably been a year or more since I played this game. I think now that I think back to it, I think that the locomotion in this game might have been a mod. I'm not sure that this shipped with full locomotion.
Huh.
I think it might be teleport.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. I've played it with full locomotion, but I think this game was meant to be a teleport game. And to be honest, it doesn't. Like, it's so fast paced. The teleport doesn't feel bad in it. It's one of these teleport, and this might be a foreign concept to a PSVR gamer, but there's a certain kind of teleport where you use the thumbstick to control what direction that you're facing when you land.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe even Resident Evil 4 does that. It was kind of the first game to do that, and it's kind of central to the gameplay that you're jumping around at a fast pace, and already having chosen the direction that you're going to be facing when you land. So it is definitely meant to be a teleport only game. I'm not sure if they ever officially added smooth locomotion to it or not.
It's funny when you're describing the whole deciding which way you're going to face, post teleport mechanic. The game that came to mind was the deepest dive I think that's ever just randomly come to mind, and that's Soul Dimension Episode 0, which is just so random for anyone who knows what game that is. But another sad story, I guess. Yeah, this looks really good, man. It looks like a lot of fun. I've been meaning to get around to playing this one, so sadly I have not. MRI Gamer with the $5 tip says, I'm also hoping for the VR Insomniac games to come to PSVR as well. There's no chance in hell that they're not coming, right? I mean,
right. I guess I should say that I meant to say it right off the top that there are certain games that I have omitted from this conversation based on the likelihood that they come. Like, if we're going to talk about our wish list of things that are coming to PSVR 2, then I automatically disqualify the games that we know are coming,
right, or
games that we think are likely to come. And I feel like most of the Insomniac, I feel like Stormland's kind of a shoe-in, right? I feel like it's a no-brainer. It's a modern VR game. I guess we could have talked about their prior work. Edge of Nowhere, Bryan, is a game I think you would love. It is third person, but it's probably the closest in terms of gameplay that I've seen in VR to Uncharted. It feels like you're playing a psychological horror version of Uncharted. It's really a great game, and yeah, I would love to see that come to PSVR 2. That's a great pick.
You got my attention. I mean, those are all the words you need in a press release to make sure that I play that. I think, having Insomniac now being first party, having all this VR experience, as long as there's no legalities, keeping these things on Oculus devices, I just don't see it not happening. Why wouldn't you want to get all your PSVR2 people on board with everything they've already done. And so that way, if they decide to expand the IP, create sequels, do whatever, that we've all played those games. It makes perfect sense. A port, so much easier than just making a new game. Looper the Underground Gamecat with the €5 says, how about Myst? I'd say it's a decent port with enough VRAF elements, moments like ladder climbing and manual lever pulling. Wes, I guess we should probably just say that Wes had an amazing list of games before the show started, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to cover them all, and Myst was absolutely on that list, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's if you love any puzzlers at all in VR, I think it's pretty safe to say that most of them owe at least some small part of influence to Myst. This was kind of the first super immersive story puzzler. And with that said, it's been completely recreated twice for VR. One awesome version that came out on Quest, but a much more rich and immersive version that came to PC that, again, kind of modernizes the gameplay quite a bit, making it into a VR title with VR interactions. They actually have options in Myst, Bryan, that allow you to either keep like the original animations and voice acting or update it. We talked about preservation with Resident Evil 4. That was something that was also very important for the developers of Myst to appease their fan base by not changing too much. So there are options in there. How much, how modernized do you really want it to be? But this thing is eye candy on PC. It's absolutely beautiful. Again, this is an iconic game that most of us played, 25 years ago. So you certainly have a nostalgia factor, and the fact that you get to step into these iconic locations, I think Myst is a game that's never going to go away. I would consider this likely to come to PSVR 2.
Well, and we do know that Cyan Worlds is bringing Firmament to PlayStation VR 2. They confirmed that not that long ago.
Right.
And so you'd almost want to say, hey, just like Naughty Dog always does, they do like some kind of remaster or whatever for their first game on a platform in order to kind of come to terms with it. Wouldn't surprise me if this is something that they do. Like, hey, we've already got this fully formed game. While Firmament's still in development, we bring this over and learn how to use adaptive triggers, learn how to use haptic feedback, learn how to use haptics in the headset, like and kind of like use Myst as a crash course in order to make sure that Firmament feels truly next gen. That sounds likely to me, and it would be really strange to see this not come over. How did you said this still performed really well on Quest?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's some telltale signs that this isn't the PC version. I mean, the vegetation is Quest vegetation. Some of the textures, if you put your nose to them, aren't going to be as high res as games that you're used to on PlayStation and PC. But I loved this game on Quest until I played it on PC, and then I never went back to it on Quest.
Sure.
But yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer, man. This game is a cash cow. There are this is a good reason for them to re-release it on the PlayStation platform for traditional gamers as well. That's what they did on PC. They re-released it flat, an updated, remastered version of the original game, and then concurrently released an updated remastered version of the VR version as well. I feel like they could do this on PlayStation and make a buttload of money, and I know that they know that. So I think it's probably a foregone conclusion at this point that at some point this is going to happen.
I kind of hope that they give Abduction another chance too, because Abduction just got a trash PSVR 1 port as far as I'm concerned. That shit was
sad,
blurry, teleport only, and loading screens every couple teleports. It felt as about unimmersive as a VR game could ever possibly be. And it seems like they just pushed it out because they promised us that they'd do it. So I'd really like Abduction to get another chance because that game was awesome from what I played until I couldn't take it anymore. finally gave up.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's got a lot of what you love about Myst, but there's expansion in the storytelling and in the world. I mean, it's like a proper sequel, even though it's not directly tied to Myst. It has everything you love about Myst, but it expands in every category. So yeah, I love Abduction, and you're right. It deserves better on the PlayStation platform.
Wes, you know what time it is?
It's that time again, huh?
That's right. It's time for a little PlayStation VR 20 questions. When I put 6 minutes up on the clock up on the counter the way that Jeremy likes it. And Wes, you have 20 yes or no questions. And really, the game cats out there need to help you out because I feel like it's almost impossible to do this on your own. But please, in the chat, help Wes out. Offer him good questions that he should be asking, and also in response to the answers that you're getting, suggestions about what game we could possibly be talking about. I'm looking it up on the PlayStation Store right now just to make sure that I have all of the details at my disposal. I want to make sure there's no element of this that I have forgotten about. I think I know everything I need to know. Perfect. Are you ready, Wes?
I am as ready as I'm going to be, Brian.
That's a big fat no.
No. Not at all.
Well, lucky for you, OBS has decided to just like, nope, now it's working. I just want to put up the 6 minute timer, and OBS is like, I don't think we want to do that. I'm like, all right.
OBS recognizes that I don't recognize the timer.
That's true. I forget about that. On your mark. Get set. Go.
Does this game use thumbsticks?
No. Let's just go with no. No, it does not.
Oh, it does not. So your hesitation there is interesting.
Yeah, it does not use thumbsticks, and I'm sorry for delaying the answer. That was a very AJ thing of me to do.
Okay, so there's nothing to read into that then.
No.
Okay. All right, so we can assume then that it's moves only. Does this game feature full locomotion?
No.
No. Is this game first person?
Yes.
So this is a first person teleport game with move controllers. Is this game exclusive to PlayStation?
No.
So it's a multi-plat game. Is it a horror game?
Yes.
So we have a multi-plat horror game, teleport only with move controllers. If we don't get this, there's something very, very wrong.
Right?
I would assume then that this is probably a game that's based on an existing franchise.
Is that an actual question?
That is a question.
No, that's 6.
Not. All right. So this is a standalone or otherwise unheard of IP. Do you do a lot of shooting in this game?
You do. We do a lot of shooting in this game. Yep.
That is interesting. So it's guys, it can't be Doom because it's not tied to a previous franchise. Teleportation or I mean, I guess we're assuming because there's not full locomotion that there's any locomotion. Is there any locomotion in this game, Brian? Or I guess I should ask you that. Can you teleport?
No. I had to think about it. No.
All right. So you can't teleport. There's not full locomotion. You're standing still, most likely, shooting things. Guys, help me out. This is a very narrow description here. Is this a good game, Brian?
I think most people would consider it a good game. Yes.
Okay. So this is good. So it's not some of the crappy wave shooters that we've had. Did this game launch within the first 2 years of the PlayStation VR launch?
Yes. That's 10.
I see. I think I know what this is. Would you call this game a zombie shooter, Brian?
Um, Zombies? I feel like I'd be steering you wrong if I didn't call it a zombie shooter.
Okay, that's good. I can't look. I forgot. I don't know who the developer is. Damn it! I think I know what this is. Does the title of this game? Can I ask questions? I can't ask questions about the title, can I?
Sure, you can. Why not?
Can I? Does the title of this game start with the word "the"?
Yes, it does, Wes. Yes, it does.
Okay. Is this the Brookhaven experiment,
Wow.
Brian?
Wow. I didn't think you were that close to getting it, so I didn't even have the trailer up and ready. It is the Brookhaven Experiment. Yes, it is, by Phosphor Games.
Phosphor Games. Thank you.
And I will tell you
I'll
that
remember that now.
I was trying to look up Phosphor Games because I had a feeling you were going to ask me have they made other PSVR games or other VR games, and I can't remember if what the deal was with Crystal Rift. Didn't I think they also made that or they published it? There was a connection there, and I was like, oh, I don't want to like not know the answer. So I was searching for Phosphor Games at the very last second there, but you already guessed it, so it didn't matter.
Nice. Yeah, Mo. This is actually by our generation considered a classic. It was a popular on PC as well. So yeah, a good one. I've only played this one a couple of times, to be honest. I haven't made it very deep. I might have played the first like 3 or 4 levels into it. Like, probably deserves a lot more attention from me than I gave it.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think it was one of those games that, like, when I saw it on the PlayStation Store, I was like, oh, I never heard of it. I kind of saw the, the screenshots, and I was like, oh, this is probably shovelware, and I didn't give it the attention it deserved for like the first, I don't know, maybe month or two until I ran out of launch games to play. It's like, oh, actually, it turns out this is really good, and they had a lot of content post launch. Twitcher saying in the chat that it uses sticks, uses analog sticks. And I will tell you, and he also says it uses the DualShock 4. Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. I will say that to my knowledge, it doesn't use the DualShock 4. In fact, it launched with only move support, and then it got aim support later on. So does it use thumbsticks? To me, was the question. I was like, it stumped me for a second, because I was like, oh, it uses the aim, but you can't walk around. And so...
Can you turn?
I think manually, and then there's a 180 flip button.
So it uses sticks then.
No, manually turn.
Oh, so
like you turn in IRL, and then you push a 180 flip button. Don't hold me to this, but that's where my head is at. I don't think there's sticks. I don't think it's stick support.
I think it's stuff like this is probably why I didn't play it as much as I did at the time when I was interested in playing this, and I did buy it. This is one of the first PC VR games that I bought when I built my PC. I built a PC within a year of starting VR. This is one of the first games that I bought. I never played it because at this time I'm the type of guy that if you give me the same. If I'm doing the same thing and I have the choice of staying stationary or moving through a level, 10 times out of 10, I'm going to pick moving through a level. And I will even make some other concessions to be able to have a level to move through. Even if it's a rail shooter, I think rail shooters are way better than wave shooters. Like I like the presence that VR brings. I like to see a level, even if I don't have the freedom to move around like I like. So at this time, I was playing Arizona Sunshine. I was playing Killing Floor Incursion and Rush of Blood. Mm-hmm. So like Brookhaven just never really appealed enough to me to pull me away from those games. Eventually, I got around to it, but again, it seems a little dated now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think wave shooters in general just feel dated now. It's like it was something that we were flooded with for so long during the PSVR lifespan, especially early on, where we were like, oh, another wave shooter, just like getting to run around the levels felt like a huge improvement over what a lot of these games were delivering. That said, I think this one deserves some recognition. It's got a great upgrade system. You're constantly upgrading your weapons, and there's a lot going on, more than just standing still and shooting bad guys. I don't know if it's zombies or not. Now I'm really questioning, are these
I would
monsters or
call it a
zombies?
zombie shooter.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it anyway.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the
I guess technically there was some variety. It wasn't all zombies. Like there were monsters and like a zombie-like creature was one of the enemies, but there were others as well.
yeah, zombie-like creatures for sure. I probably shouldn't have spent so much time thinking about that. It's like, yeah, it's a zombie shooter. All right. That's gonna have to do it, man. We gotta get out of here. Thank you so much, Wes, for hanging out with me as always, guys. Don't forget that Wes does a lot of content over there on Virtual Strangers, so make sure you give him the love that channel and him and his friends deserve. Click the link in the description below. Subscribe to his channel. Also, make sure you join us over on Discord. Click the links in the description below. Get your viewer takeover questions in. All sorts of stuff happening over there. Conversation 24/7. Patreon.com/WithoutParoleGames if you want to support the channel. So many people that help this channel run. Everybody from Sci-Fi Gamecat Henry to J Meow to all the moderators. They're all awesome. Thank you to everybody who hung out and watched the show. Thank you to everybody who commented. Thank you to everybody who tipped and supports the channel. And thank you to everybody who helped Wes out during 20 questions. And thank you to everybody who sat back and watched the show and didn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there, and we love you just as much. Let's get out of here, Wes.
Bye. See you later, guys.
Can we talk more about Walkabout mini golf?
Yeah, I would like to have a Resident Evil 4 themed Walkabout DLC. What about you?
Yes. In fact, dude, I want so much potential for Walkabout. I was talking to Rypop in voice chat on Discord the other day, and he was saying how cool it would be. You must have played Astro's Playroom, where there were all these different themes going on, right? The little Astrobots that you'd encounter were all sort of cosplaying or acting out little scenes from different PlayStation games. How cool would it be to have a PlayStation themed course, a specific an exclusive, like the whole course could be, or just I don't know if it'd be individual holes or if it'd be entire courses, one devoted to The Last of Us, one devoted to God of War, one devoted to Jack and Daxter. Who the fuck knows, man? Like all sorts of different possibilities there. That'd be really cool.
I love the idea, and yeah, that would be great. It would be a great way for Walkabout to come over. And Sony, for all of their faults, this is something that they do very well, is pay homage to their history. So yeah, man, I'm down. I really absolutely love that about the latest Astrobot title, the pack-in with the PS5. It really pays homage all the way back to the PS1 and everything in between. So yeah, man, I'm down. Sign me up for sure.
Nice. Well, let's see what happens when Walkabout finally makes its way over to PlayStation VR 2. As long as things go well, I can't imagine that not happening. I can't seem to get any information out of the developers, but let's hope that they make it happen. Dark Angel 3 in the chat says, "Stranger Things, Walkabout, please." Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to go from for sure the real world to the Upside Down throughout the course.
It'd be cool because it would seem normal until you get to hole 11, then everything literally flips upside down.
That would be really cool. All right, man. Let's get out of here.
Later.
Love you guys.